Well, good afternoon and welcome to what I believe is my 17th episode in this Reverent cooking series that I've started here. Today we are making something a little simpler, really. This is something I've made quite a bit. It's something I make for the kids, especially whenever Melissa's busy or whatever. This is my homemade beef stroganoff. Now, I'm not making the noodles from scratch or anything tonight, although that probably wouldn't be too bad to do it. Actually, the reason why I'm doing this recipe tonight is because Leah came home from visiting some friends up north, some old friends of ours, the Smartses, Carol and Greg. And apparently Greg dropped lots of hints that he wanted to see a beef stroganoff recipe. So that's what we're doing tonight. What I have here is got about 2 pounds of ground beef. Normally what I do is about a cup of onion, about a half a cup of onion for every pound. I actually have 2 cups of onion here because we had some red onion and some white onion both already cut up in the fridge. And normally I would put in a little bit of green pepper, but we don't have any right now. And so I was going to just leave it alone, and then I saw there's some celery down there, so I cut up just a half a cup of celery I'm going to add to it tonight. Got some fresh mushrooms because I like fresh mushrooms in mine. For seasonings, it's going to be pretty simple. Salt and pepper, garlic powder, paprika, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. I got some beef broth here to cook the noodles in. Got my noodles. We like to add peas to ours. You don't have to do that. It's just a way of getting the kids to eat vegetables. From an early age, we just kind of toss peas and mushrooms in to get our kids to eat a little bit more. And then at the very end, you're going to add sour cream. That's what gives it that creaminess there at the end. So without too much more, I'm going to get started. We're going to toss in our onions. And like I said, normally I'd use green pepper, but today I'm using celery. So I'm going to turn this on just fairly high, actually. Because we're going to use all of these vegetables, and we're just kind of wanting to cook down and brown our hamburger. Here's that burger I talked about. It's still a little frozen. That's not probably good. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the lid on it, and then we're going to start chopping up the mushrooms. I want to get the Worcestershire sauce out, and I want to show you some more of Melissa's nifty tools that she got while she was selling Pampered Chef. They make these, you can get these at Walmart. I think this was called the Mix and Chop. It's just a pretty simple one. Lauren Smart is online. Lauren, you have to tell your parents I'm making the stroganoff that they asked for. So, but we're going to start off with that. I'm going to actually go ahead and put some salt and pepper down here and that garlic powder to get it started. So kind of fairly liberally salt this. Again, the salt helps to break down the onion. And so then we're going to add some fresh cracked pepper. We'll probably add a little bit more pepper later as well. We'll go ahead and add my garlic. Like I've said many times, I like garlic, so I'll use a little bit more garlic than what the recipe actually calls for. And then one of the key ingredients, paprika, is what really makes stroganoff and not just beef and noodles. It's just it adds that different texture, different taste. So put that in there, put my lid back on. And then I'm keeping this styrofoam container that my beef was in because I'm actually going to use that to put my trash on. These are fresh button mushrooms. I have already washed them. One of the things about mushrooms is because they grow right on the dirt, sometimes they still have quite a bit of dirt on them. So I'm going to cut off these ends. As you can see, this here's been cut kind of at an angle. I'm going to cut that off, and then I'm just going to chunk these. I've got a friend who's coming over tonight, and I don't think he likes mushrooms, so I want this to be fairly simple for him to pick those out. So, but I really like mushrooms in my stroganoff, so we're going to have that. Hi, Diane. Glad you're watching as well. So I'm going to go ahead and prep these mushrooms while the onion is starting to cook and while the celery and the meat is all going together. And there's Leah just coming in. We're getting ready to leave tomorrow, so she's out there cleaning a little bit while I'm fixing supper. So again, I'm just kind of chopping the ends off And depending on their size, I'll either chop them into fourths like I did this one, or if they're bigger than that, I'll go ahead and cut them into 8 to 6ths. Really big ones I might go ahead and cut into 8ths, but most of these it looks like they're going to be about fourths size, just so that you can slice your mushrooms. If it was just our family, I probably would actually slice them because they'll cook a little faster. And so that, but with, like I said, my friend who doesn't like mushrooms, I want him to be able to pick them out. Here's one that I've cut into 6ths, just so you can see. This one's cut into 6ths, so like that. We're going to go ahead and finish these up while the onion is starting to cook and the hamburger is starting to cook. We're just wanting to brown the hamburger because once we add in the beef broth, it will actually go ahead and cook down even more. And we're really not wanting to like boil the hamburger, so it needs to be fairly brown beforehand. And so just go ahead and working on these mushrooms, get them done. Try and get everything ready to where here in a second, we're hoping that as that burger is cooking down, it'll kind of finish thawing out there. And I will show you how Melissa's mix and chop works. It's really one of the best things to use on ground beef. It does a great job of helping to keep it from well, just sticking into big chunks. So just kind of slicing the ends off these mushrooms and quartering them while that hamburger is browning. Again, if you're just joining me, tonight we are making homemade beef stroganoff. If I had more time and I was feeling really adventuresome, I may even use our new pasta machine we got and make our own noodles, but not quite there yet. I'm hoping after our vacation I'll come back and I'll play with that pasta roller some, and then maybe you guys will get to see a homemade pasta episode. I love Italian cooking. I love pasta. As you can tell, I've eaten quite a bit of pasta. Actually, to be honest with you, since I started doing this Reverent cooking show and since I started paying attention a little bit more, back in March, Melissa and I started walking more. We tried to walk. Our trail is 3.4 miles. If you're familiar with Tell City, we walk down to the far end of the flood wall and the river walk. We walk the entire river walk down and back, and then we walk back here to the house, and that's 3.4 miles. We've been doing that probably, I bet we've averaged 5 days a week since March. And between that walking and the show, which you'd think some of the recipes I've made are probably not that low in calorie, but I've actually lost probably about 15 pounds just by watching what I eat, counting the calories, paying attention to what I'm doing, and then adding in that walking, the exercise. Realistically, I'm not limiting myself on what I eat. I eat what I want, and I enjoy that, and that's just part of it. So I think most of us, we tend to just eat and we don't pay attention to what we're eating. And so we, like most human beings, we just tend to, especially Americans, we just tend to overindulge. So I'm going to check this burger. It should be starting to get to the point. The mix and chop, it's just this star, and I'm just kind of pushing through. Even though that hamburger wasn't completely thawed out, it'll chop down through it. And again, the onions that are on the bottom are just flavoring this. And like I said, normally I would use some green pepper, but since we didn't have any, I just decided to grab some celery. I think it'll give it a nice little something, but for the most part, most people probably wouldn't even know it's in there. I diced it pretty small, so the onions are much bigger chunks than what the celery is. So we're just kind of cooking our onions and celery here, and we are browning the hamburger. So give us this first good chop, and I may try to take you guys down so you can see this. Actually, I think I want to go ahead and do that. I want to pull the phone off my stand here, and I'm going to turn the camera around and just allow you to see this. So this is the mix and chop. This is the burger. Like I said, you can see I've got some There's some of that celery. I just finally chopped it. The onion's probably about 2 to 3 times the size of the celery. And I'm just kind of using that to flavor my hamburger. Normally, like I said, I'd use green pepper, but we just didn't purchase any. We didn't make it down to the farmer's market last Saturday. So this burger is seasoned with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and a little bit of paprika. Actually, quite a bit of paprika, considering. But like I said, paprika is one of the primary flavors that you use in beef stroganoff. So there you go. You can see how it works. You just kind of mash down in there, and it'll break it up really good. That way you don't have some big chunks and some really fine chunks. And so I'm gonna set that down, put the lid back on it, and I'm gonna put you guys back up on the stand.
Did you say that it was a shout out by Greg Smart?
Oh yeah, Leah. I made sure to shout out to Greg Smart for asking for this. So this is just kind of a fairly quick meal. It's something you can probably cook in about a half an hour. This might take me a little bit longer because that hamburger was frozen, but that's why I put the lid on top. So my mushrooms are ready. I'm going to go ahead and, even though we won't add the peas right away, I'm going to go ahead and open up this can of peas. And we're going to drain the peas because we don't need any of that liquid. But we're just going to add that, kind of add some veggies to our thing here. Pull the lid off. Bring this over to the sink and drain it. So that's ready. Mushrooms are ready. The hamburger is just about done, so I'm going to go ahead and add these mushrooms in here because we want to get them to start cooking. And since I put the mushrooms in, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more salt, not a lot, but again, that salt helps to break down the vegetable. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more pepper as well. Now, I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do. One of the things that you can do to help kind of cut down on the calories on a dish like this is you can drain your burger. Melissa did that for years. Just take a colander, put it in the sink, and drain it down. We usually run some hot water in our garbage disposal, and that helps to kind of flush that down, and that'll cut down on some of the calories. Or you can leave that in there, and it's going to make a richer flavor. Because of how it's done, that broth, our beef broth, and all that, the beef juices will kind of meld together, and they'll cook into the noodles. Either way is fine. Like I said, we're kind of looking at calories, so I may actually decide to go ahead and drain this tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and get out the colander so that that's ready, and have our colander here in the sink. Again, like I said, I'm just going to set it over to the side so that I can run some hot water in it. If you really wanted to get rid of most of the fat from your meat, you could absolutely just run water over your meat and rinse all that fat off. But I like the flavor the fat gives it, so I'm going to leave that there. We will drain this, but I'm going to kind of stir this up. And again, the mix and chop will chop these mushrooms up a little bit more than what I did, but I'm not too concerned about it. Like I said, we like the mushrooms. It's just we got one friend who he claims he doesn't like mushrooms, but I think it's more he just maybe doesn't like the texture or hasn't had them done well. So this meat is mostly brown. Here in just a second, I'm going to go ahead and drain it, and then we're going to put it back in our pan and move on to the next phase. This is really most of the cooking here takes place in this stage because the noodles really cook in about 6 or 7 minutes, so it's a pretty quick dish at that point. So burgers cooking. If I'm feeling really fancy, one of the things I like to do is I like to actually use like a sirloin or a piece of chuck, and I'll cube it and I will brown that instead of using ground hamburger. Our kids actually really like it also, like with a deer steak, like we chopped up and have a venison in the stroganoff. Of course, Melissa won't eat the venison, but that's okay. That's one of those things we just do occasionally whenever she's gone to a retreat or something like that. But this is like I said, this stroganoff is a quick dish. It's something easy to do. I'm going to go ahead and drain this, and we're going to move on to the next phase here. So I want to take this over here. I'm just quickly, I know I'm off camera, sorry about that guys. Just going to quickly dump this in, let the fat drain out. Just going to drain most of it, put it back in the skillet, and now we're moving on. So there you go. We're going to add to this here. Each one of these, I guess you'd say cardboard containers you get at the store is about 4 cups. So I'm going to use probably all 8 cups here because we're doing, normally if it was just our family, I'd just probably use 1 pound of burger instead of the 2. And so we're going to put that there. Yeah, I'm going to have to use 4 cups for what I've got in here. So we're using 4 cups here. We're going to bring this up to a boil, still over pretty much high heat, not all the way up, just below the highest. Ours, like I said, our stove goes from 1 or low or 1 all the way up to high or 7. And so I've got this on about 6 right now. So we're going to switch over. I no longer need to mix and mash. Instead, I'm going to pull out here a nice slotted spoon. Put that mix and mash in the sink. We're going to stir this up. Let this start to heat up. And now we're going to add in our noodles. I'm just using a simple bagged egg noodle tonight. Nothing fancy, but really good, cheap source of food here. It'll pour the whole bag in, get that going. And once this comes to a boil, I'm going to set the lid on it. Actually, I may go ahead and put the lid on a little early. And I'm actually going to go ahead and add the peas as well. Essentially, canned peas are fully cooked, so you really don't need to cook them, you're just reheating them. And since these noodles will cook, I believe the package, I always look at the package, not because I use those exact, but this says it'll cook in 6 to 8 minutes. And so I want to know that I'm not going to try and cook it longer than 8 minutes. So got everything in here. We got our burger that we browned with the onions and celery. Got my mushrooms in here. Got my peas. Got my noodles. Just trying to kind of stir this up and push these noodles down into the liquid as much as possible. And now I'm going to put my lid on. And like I said, I've got it on 6 here. And I'm going to clean up my station, clean up my mess. We'll recycle the can, recycle the plastic and the cardboard. Go ahead and stick this over here in the sink and throw away my trash. And I'll be right back, guys. Just run over here. So again, like I said, this is a pretty quick meal. Once this comes to a boil, then we're only going to cook those noodles for about 6 minutes. I'll probably then turn off the heat. We're going to add in the sour cream we've got here, and then it will be done. It'll be ready to eat. So we're just about done. Thank you guys for watching this. Greg and Carol, if you guys watch it, I hope that this satisfies your request for beef stroganoff. Sorry I can't bring you some up. It's a little bit of a drive up there, but Lisa, you know how far it is from all the way down south to up there in Huntington County. So we're just finishing up our beef stroganoff, and then we're going to enjoy our time tonight. So hope you guys have enjoyed this. Like I said, it's a simple dish, and at this point in time, we're just kind of waiting for it to cook. Melissa just got home from work, and so we're going to finish up. Leah is actually going to experiment tonight. Melissa found a recipe for some red velvet whoopie pies that have blueberries in it. So we went and got the stuff for that, and we're going to see how it goes. So we might, I don't know that Leah will have us record that and show you guys, but she might take a picture when she's done, and we'll put that out there for you to see. But and to the request, yes, I know Carol and Greg and Lauren, yes, Melissa is there. and she's in the background right now, but she's yet to venture onto the camera. You guys may think that she's not shy, but that's just because you've gotten to know her over the years. For the most part, she stays off camera. Right, dear?
Yep.
Sneak peek.
There she
Say
is.
hi, Mom.
Not a fan of the way it looks.
And she's keeping her back turned. So this has come almost to a boil here. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for 6 minutes, and we're going to let it go and come back.
Took 20 pounds off.
If the camera took 20 pounds off.
Instead
Well,
of ads, so
I
I'm
don't
not getting
think you
on
can
camera.
do that because it's not taking anything off of me. So,
Yeah, you look better than me though.
so we're getting out bowls here to serve this in. And
You can ask if anyone has any questions.
anybody got any questions or some suggestions for what to do next?
Or comments.
Tomorrow we're leaving, so it's gonna be all.
We can do campfire stuff. If they have campfire recipes.
We'll see what happens as we're gone on vacation. I don't know what all I can do out there, and I'm not for sure what kind of cooking supplies we're going to take with us. So,
Well,
Lauren says she loves you either way, dearie, whether you're on camera or not.
No, thank you. It's just because I used to feed her too.
Well, yeah, we enjoy having people over. We enjoy cooking for people. There's Leah, and that's just part of it. I hope that if you've ever been in one of the churches we've served or the communities where we've served, you've gotten to experience that. We always try to do our open house as a way of just saying thank you to everyone. We try to, if someone wants to get together, we're glad to cook for them and do that. That's just kind of our way of saying thank you. I heard someone post the other day, I think Melissa shared my last video and said how I might be a closet chef. I don't know that I'm a chef. I love to cook and enjoy cooking and have done so for many years. I've always thought about restaurants and things like that, but God called me into the ministry instead. And so we enjoy cooking and we do that. Today I'm cooking beef stroganoff. It is in the final stages. We're just kind of bringing this up to a boil. In fact, you know what? I want to go ahead and move it over here to the higher heat. And we're going to get this up and running a little better and turn off that smaller burner. And that way, because it looked like it was boiling, but I guess it wasn't. Small burner, big skillet doesn't always work that well, but stuffed green peppers. Now that's an interesting suggestion there, Leela. Do you want them like a beef and rice stuffed pepper? Do you want a tomato-y stuffed pepper? We've done like a fajita stuffed pepper before. We've also done chili cheesesteak, Philly cheesesteak, not chili cheesesteak.
Justin likes that.
Philly cheesesteak stuffed peppers. So we've done quite a few different kinds of stuffed peppers. So you'll have to tell me what you actually want there, and I'll do my best. We actually were hoping that we would get a hold of you. I had saved aside a container of that shrimp primavera I made, and I was hoping to give that to you, and then I think one of the kids ate it. Sorry, Leela. But tonight we're finishing up our beef stroganoff. In here, like I said, I started off by browning my 2 pounds of burger with onion, and normally I would use green pepper. We were out of green pepper, so I just, for a little bit of that sulfury bite that the pepper adds, I decided to go with just a little bit of celery. It's seasoned with salt, pepper. We've added in some garlic salt and paprika. I decided, not garlic salt, sorry, just garlic powder. I decided to go with garlic powder instead of fresh garlic because I wanted a little bit more of a milder taste and I wanted it a little more even. Sometimes when you use fresh garlic, it has a more pungent aroma and a more pungent flavor to the dish. And so I decided to just go with garlic powder. And then of course I've added in some paprika. Paprika is pretty much a requirement for a good stroganoff here. So I'm going to take this off, the lid off, and check it and stir this up. Make sure we get those noodles down in there. We're just kind of finishing this up. See how these noodles are cooking. We got about 1.5 minutes by the timer here. I may go ahead and let it go more than those 6 minutes. I may let it go 7 minutes. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and reset my timer to 2.5 minutes. So about 2.5 minutes left. I'm going to let it cook a little bit more because it was kind of on a lower heat and it wasn't cooking as fast as I like. So my choice. Well, we may just try and do a couple of them over the summer months. How's that, Leela? And if you decide you want to come join us one night, let us know, and you can come join us, and we'll have stuffed peppers. So the stroganoff is boiling. One of the last things we're going to do is we're going to add some sour cream at the very end. I've got here about maybe 1/4 of a container, and normally that'd be about right for a 1 pound batch, but since I'm doing a double batch here, I've got some more sour cream standing by, and we're going to finish that off here in just a second, and it will be ready to serve. So I hope that you've seen just kind of like I said, this is a standard easy dish, beef stroganoff. You know, the reality is while I enjoy cooking and I feel like I'm fairly good at it, I'm definitely not a chef. I'm not a professional. But the thing of it is whatever you do well. Enjoy what you do, and just do it for God. Like I said, I decided one day that it was time to just kind of do something online and help that out. Judith, you asked what kind of noodles. These are just a simple egg noodle. Probably like $1 a bag at the grocery store. Nothing fancy. I did say earlier we bought a pasta maker, not the expensive attachment for our KitchenAid, but just kind of a hand crank one. So I'm going to start experimenting with that when we come back from vacation, and maybe the next time I make stroganoff, I'll make homemade noodles to go with it too. So this has come to a rolling boil. We got about 30 seconds left. I'm going to stir this up a little bit more. The noodles have gotten soft and tender. Our mushrooms are cooked. The burger is cooked. Our onions are in here. You wouldn't even know that there's celery in here if I didn't tell you there was. And so the last thing we're going to do now is we're going to add this sour cream. And I'm going to go ahead and shut off my timer and turn off my stove. And we're going to add in here about you know, this is a 1 pound container, and I think it's got like 2 cups of sour cream in it. We got about 1/2 of a cup in here, but I'm going to probably put about a cup and a half in. And realistically, I realize this sounds strange to say. I'm not measuring this because it's more about the look. I want this stroganoff to have a nice creamy look, and so it's more about color for me. As I've said in the past, cooking is art, baking is science. With baking, you need to stay to some pretty stringent measurements to make sure you get everything in the right amount. So that's probably about 1.5 cups in here, and I'm just going to stir this in and see how it looks, and I'd say we are done. So we're kind of stirring in the sour cream here as this finishes cooking. And we have completed our dish. If you like it a little thicker, you could always do a little bit of water and cornstarch and thicken it up and treat it more like a gravy. But for me, I don't mind it being a little bit more liquidy, so we're going to do that. Set this over here. Our stroganoff is done. I want to go ahead and scoop some out for you to see. And there you go. Homemade beef stroganoff with peas and mushrooms. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time for Reverent Cooking.